I'm Bill Walker. I wanted to take some time to give a little bit of my background, explain to you who I am, where I'm from, what has caused me to make this decision to run for governor. My parents came to the state in the early 40s. My mother worked for the Corps of Engineers out of Fairbanks on the building of the Alaska Highway. She was in charge of dispatching of all the equipment needed for the highway, whether building of that highway. That was as you know, that was a huge project. It was one that many said could never be done, and ultimately, when as a result of World War II, it was built in less than a year. About the same time my father came to Alaska, they did not know each other. He came to Alaska and as in the military, and became a part of what's called the Alaska Scouts. They were a unique group of military who had specific abilities to live off the land. Very important part of Alaska's history. I'm very proud of his role and his involvement in that. I think my father's greatest accomplishments, perhaps, is his marriage to my mother. They were both in Fairbanks, and on a train from Fairbanks to Anchorage, did not know each other. A snowslide stopped the train at Mount McKinley Park, and on that train there were hundreds and hundreds of soldiers, and there were 10 women. And my mother was one of the 10 women. So he had his work cut out for him to get to know one of those the 10 women, and he did. They were married about a year after that. I was born in Fairbanks, and at St. Joseph's Hospital, and we were there for a few years. My father was involved with a company called Arctic Block Construction. He and a wonderful gentleman by the name of Con Frank in Fairbanks were foolish enough to try to make concrete block in the winter in Fairbanks, Alaska, and they were successful at that. They manufactured the block for a hospital at Ladd Field, if I recall that correctly, and so there's some very rich history in our family with Fairbanks in the 40s. Following that, our family moved to Delta Junction, south about 100 miles of Delta Junction, and operated a facility called the Malamute Saloon. And as typical in Alaska, nobody does any one thing, you do several things. So we had the Malamute Saloon, and also they had a newspaper called Walker's Weekly, and ultimately my father also worked on Fort Greely in civil service, and we lived on Fort Greely for a period of time. We moved from Fairbanks to Valdez to build houses, and that's what we did. We were in the house building business, and the crew largely consisted of my father and my brother and myself. There were no such things as subs. We dug the hole, made the concrete, built the walls, the roof on, and everything in between. That's the way it was in the late 50s, early 60s in Valdez. So hard work was not anything new to me. We didn't have TV in Valdez in those years, or radio, a little bit of radio, but it was mostly friendships, classmates, and hard work. Then came the earthquake. That put us out of the house building business in about 5.5 minutes on March 27th because of 1964, because you couldn't build houses in Valdez at that time because the land was unstable. The houses we had just completed, in fact, we'd poured a foundation the day before the earthquake, and I remember going into that with my dad and looking at what the earthquake had done to that fresh concrete that we had poured, and it was pretty devastating. But we were one of the larger families in Valdez that did not have any loss of life, and so we were very fortunate